Yo, check this out.
Caleb, I love you with all my heart, but you are not Italian.
These guys put a pot-smoking Ottawa band on the litter of C-Taz.
Best podcast ever.
Dude, episode 235. Craig, what's going on?
How you doing, baby?
235. We've been doing it for a while. We're here with Luke from the Dirty Nil. Once again, appreciate you coming on, man. This is wild. You've been on the list for a while, so this is cool.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, gentlemen.
No problem, dude. Let's talk about the album first. The LASH, album number 5, July 25th.
Hell yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, well, Kyle and I started the band in the summer of 2006. So sometimes I'm like, wow, we've got 5 albums. And I'm like, shouldn't there be more by now?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, it is. We do definitely feel a distinct sense of accomplishment getting 5 records in the can.
How do you approach album rollouts now?
Well, I think everyone's kind of different because you're usually working with different components every time, and we kind of we try different things every time, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think the rollout is definitely somewhat dictated by the vibe of the record, and this time from the music to the artwork, everything's kind of pretty Spartan and DIY and pretty colorless, in terms of our visuals and stuff. So we're trying to, on the last album cycle, we did a lot less interviews, and this time we're trying to talk to more people, just because we're, a big part of this album is about our local music community, and that's kind of how we made it. We made it locally for the first time, and so we're trying to basically use whatever kind of modest profile that we've garnered through our time as a band to link up with other local artists and local media to talk about it, rather than only do interviews with Stereo Gum or whatever. I don't even know who the major outlets are anymore. But yeah, we kind of were really selective last time, and this time we're doing a lot more zines and talking to punks, and that's just kind of the vibe of the album.
Nice. Well, and you guys recorded with Vince in Hamilton, right? This time around.
Yes, we did.
Nice.
Yes, you know Vince?
I do. Yeah. So he played with Drew for a few different. I think he was in the Foundation and Single Mothers at different times, right?
He's a very talented man in many ways.
Yeah, good guy. And what kind of differences did you wind up with working with an independent studio rather than in the past? I think you worked with Eric Ratz or something like that with Master Volume and.
Yeah, so all of our previous records we made with a man named John Goodmanson, who's a good friend of ours. He's from Seattle. He mixed Higher Power, and then we made Master Volume, Fuck Art, and Free Reign of Passions with him from the ground up. And John is incredible, and he has he's worked with a lot of big artists, and he's got an incredible pedigree and just a stunning resume, and he's mad talented at what he does. And this time we decided that we wanted to work with Vince because we've made a lot of records with John and we're very proud of what we've done with John, but we were doing demos and live recordings with Vince, and they were turning out so awesome, particularly the demos that we were doing, that we just said, well, why don't we just make a record down this? Why do we have to go to we don't have to go to a bigger, an expensive studio to make a good rock and roll record. We can go down the street and work with our friend.
Totally.
And make it in a short amount of time. And also, Vince had complained to me in the past that, he makes a lot of records for a lot of different artists, but that one of his big complaints about things is that he'll make a record for a band, he'll pour his heart and soul into the whole thing, and then the band breaks up before the record comes out. So I said, we're going to give you a sterling guarantee that will not happen.
A tale as old as time.
No, exactly. And I think, part of it just involved like putting a bit, having the confidence to put more of a bet on ourselves in terms of our experience in the studio at this point, and I think a lot of the times when we've gone to bigger, nicer studios, there's kind of this implied thing in the background, and I think that a lot of musicians feel this way, that like if I go to a really nice studio, the product will be X amount better and X amount more people will like it, and you kind of do this unspoken math in your mind, and we just said, well, to hell with all that, we're gonna make a gnarly rock and roll record down the street with our friend and see what happens. And that, like, even just making it and getting to release it is good enough for us. Whatever, if anything else happens on the back of it, that's great. But we made it because we wanted to make it, and we liked the songs. And the last time we made a record was Free Reign to Passions, and we were staying up at this studio called Jukasa, and it's a really, really nice studio, and it has so much crazy gear and outboard gear and all this stuff. It's like, we're not using any, but it's like, we don't use any of this stuff. It's like we use a couple of compressors and that's it. It's not, we don't need all the bells and whistles to make a record that we're super stoked on. So why do it? And who knows, like our approach might change on the next one, but this one we were like, put a mic in front of my Marshall amp and set up a vocal mic in front of my head and put a couple of mics on everything else, and we're gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. So we wanted to make a record closer to home, because the last time we all went a little bit crazy staying up at the in the accommodations at Jukasa and just kind of having no break from it. And this time we're like, well, let's do like almost like a 9 to 5 day, Monday to Friday for 2 weeks, and take the weekend off, and then and not like the more time for our band, like the more time in the studio, like you hit a tipping point where it's not going to get any, like your mindset is going to be affected by the extra time. And so we're the kind of band that like we do the hard yards down in, like I'll write the song, I'll bring in the song, we'll arrange the song and do the hard yards on the music in the jam space and arrange it so that like you can record it with a boom box, that we don't do any writing in the studio or anything like that. We're a go to the studio and have fun executing it type of band. We're not a let's see if we can spend $1,000 a day to get the creative juices flowing.
No doubt.
We're quite blue collar in our approach to recording.
Yeah, being a well rehearsed band going into the studio is so important these days. So it's like unimaginable to like have that Stones approach. It's like, we just kind of lived in the studio for 3 months. What?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you can do that if you're the Rolling Stones in 1972. But
that's it.
Yeah, for us rock and roll bands from Southern Ontario in 2025, I think the studio is to be treated with respect.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's that was back in the day when studio time was like a nickel a day. You could afford to hang out and fuck around.
Yes, and the record industry was quite different, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I was curious, knowing all you know, and maybe this is like an advice question, but knowing what you know now, if a rock band was coming to you and be like, hey man, we're putting out our first album, what would you advise that rollout to look like?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, people ask me all the time, like younger bands ask me, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I wish I had a better answer on any of this stuff, but I'd be lying if I said I know at all what the hell's going on. Like, I really don't. I mean, we were kind of fortunate enough in our time, like when we were first kind of starting to, get a toe in the door, that, we had a couple songs that really connected with people, and the internet was very different, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I think we were assisted by the landscape that was present at that time. But I think that if I had to give like a general piece of advice, is that that a lot of people despair about the current music industry and the tools available to you, and how it used to be different and how it used to be easier. And I think like I would encourage anybody with that mindset to crack open a rock and roll book from the past and realize that like it's never been easy. It wasn't easy for Frank Sinatra. It wasn't easy for the Beatles. It wasn't easy for any of these people. Like of course it was different, but now if you're willing to put in the effort to bring your music to people, good things will happen. You might not become rich or famous, but people, as long as you are willing to put in the work, connecting with people, and for lack of a better term, promoting yourself through your own voice, good things will happen. But you have to be willing to kind of to put up with some grinding, but I mean, it's the hardest working bands we know are the bands that get the luckiest opportunities. It's like the same thing regardless of what you pursue in life. It's like if you're what I would advise. I know this seems like a cop out, but it's just like work really hard.
Yeah.
That's all I can. That's all I can really say.
Yeah. That makes sense, man. It's like it's also just something that I found. Like I work in podcasting, and I've never once applied for a job that I've got. I've just sent emails and been like, "Can I fucking do anything for you?" And that's worked out for me. But you can kind of put that to anything you do in life. Is like just ask.
Yeah.
Ask whatever. If somebody says no, who gives a shit? Move on to the next thing, and just keep. As long as you believe in what you do, and what you provide.
Be prepared for rejection and believe in what you're doing. I think that's well said.
I wanted to ask, I don't know if you've seen this video or not, but you're doing all these interviews for this album. Have you considered driving to a Mr. Lube or something and just showing the text, the album? I don't know if you have you seen this Puddle of Mud video where Wes Scantlin takes her to a Jiffy Lube and just plays the album for his buddy Samson.
I saw the thumbnail for that, and I have to admit that as a guy that was around in the early 2000s for Puddle of Mud's heyday, that it's the last kind of 10 years of Wes Scantlin related news that I have only so much stomach to hear anything new from him. But I did see that he did that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's a pretty you should check out the video. It's a fun watch. But we we talked about it on the last episode. Craig and I last year, 2 years ago, put together the definitive butt rock playlist.
Yes.
I myself am a recovering butt rock fan, so I always have a little bit of
one day at a time, brother.
little space in my heart for bands like that.
Of course,
it gets caught up. But we made that playlist, and I started listening to it, ironically, and then it became too much, and I was like, this is like affecting my mental health.
Yes. Yeah.
A little bit too much Buck Cherry.
One
really
can get
down,
lost in the theory of a nickel creed sauce. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, dude.
One can become stained very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. I wanted to ask you, we kind of sort of touched on like the music industry of today. Every musician's worst enemy is Spotify and their algorithm. How much are the Spotify numbers affecting what you're doing on kind of, maybe not day-to-day basis, but, on an album rollout?
We kind of keep one eye on it because, it's like, it's nice when it's going well, but at the same time, we don't really care because we care insofar as we know that those streaming numbers, like when we can get them higher, do allow us opportunities within the industry, like, being able to demand a higher guarantee at places and things like that because the numbers are good. And so we pay attention to them insofar as, the industry is concerned, like the people that are looking at those numbers and how they treat us based on those numbers.
Right.
We kind of keep an eye on them, but at the same time, I think that we've kind of like, we've known too many people that have become like a slave to those numbers, and you know, and you know, I think that I've never had a time in my life where I was like really like, oh fuck Spotify, fuck this, fuck that, because I just feel like, but this is the the world. Like why where I rate, like I'm not, and I don't fault anybody for having a everything, like you know, fuck all these streaming services perspective on things. But at the same time, I do think that like there are aspects of every time in the music industry that are good, and aspects of it that are really bad. And like it's you know, I have more of a default stance of like acceptance on it, and like, and I kind of keep myself, I stick to my knitting when it comes to concerns about the music industry. I stick to, you know, trying to write more songs and trying to kick more ass live and have a good time with it, because I'm gonna die one day and I don't want to spend any time angry or worried that I didn't have to.
Very good philosophy on that.
That
man.
might be the
That's
best
killer.
take I've heard on Spotify plays. I was very curious because I think like comparing it to, you know, the artists that are so big where like Spotify actually tells you like where they're ranked in the world, you know,
Right.
versus just like I'm in a rock band trying to do my thing. Like, is it even relevant? You know, to an extent, obviously, like you said, the numbers are relevant to some point, but enough to worry about. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, and I mean, like, we're willing to play the game a little bit and, like, you know, do things with Spotify to, you know, we'll make playlists and stuff, but that's more like of songs that we're liking, but that's more or less to be like, you know, we've realized that some people out there, I guess, are interested in what we listen to in the van and stuff, and so it's like, okay, well, here you go. Like,
Yeah,
we
for
are
the
trying.
people.
We're trying to. I think we're trying to basically, you know, we by default have a bit of a stance of like, okay, well, how can we utilize these tools to connect with our fans better? And you know, we're not perfect at it. We're not great at it, but like we do make efforts to use them. And every time we do make an effort in any of these directions, it usually goes well. So I mean, we've had a lot of positive reinforcement with using the tools rather than kind of saying, you know, we're not going to put any more, like. And again, if your stance is we're not putting any of our stuff on streaming services because that's our stance, more power to you. That's great. But ours, we're kind of we are less of a Rage Against the Machine type band, and more of a let's have a good time and kick some ass while we can type band.
And I could just be like ignorant to this, but I've never met a music fan that gave a shit that like their band was on or off Spotify. Because also like as much as I would love to like be like, fuck yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass if I want to listen to your music if it's like only on Bandcamp, you know, and I have to like, even if I buy it and then I got to figure out how to
it's not,
how do I get this on my phone now?
Yeah,
dude?
it's not exactly fan
anymore.
service to make things exclusive, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, as you might imagine, I love music, and I see, you know, you guys do too. Like, I listen to music on Spotify. I do, like, because I am a person that is alive in the 21st century, and that is like, it's mad easy, you know. And I'm like, you know, and again, if you have a different take on it, more power to you. But my position on it is I can't help but just honestly see that like our band has really grown because of services like Spotify. Like it's, you know, we pay the bills through going out and playing shows and, you know, associated revenues from that, you know. That's really what keeps the lights on over here. It's not, and you know, selling vinyl and stuff, but all that is kind of at shows particularly. So it doesn't really, you know, sometimes when I read things of like, you know, this band sold X amount of records in 1997 and stuff, I'm like, that might have been sweet, like to be able to, you know, that sounds pretty nice. But I don't spend any time thinking about or lamenting the current landscape, because I think I'm just hardwired for optimism a little bit, where I'm just like, think of all the people that have discovered our band because they Shazammed it in a gym, or they Shazammed it at a bar, and were like, what's this band? And then they came out to the next show and they told all their buddies, and now we have fans in West Virginia. And like, we hear all the, like, at shows, people come up and they tell you how they got into the band, and a lot of the time it's from Spotify or from Shazam or whatever. So, that's, I think I'm just hardwired to look at the positives on it. Obviously, there's other conversations around like compensation structure and stuff and yada 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 yada. But like, I kind of like, and I have my thoughts on that are the same as everybody's, but at the same time, as I said, I'm pretty hardwired for optimism on that stuff.
Yeah, well, in an ever-changing system, right? I mean, like, the path of least resistance would be to adapt to survive and just kind of use whatever advantages to the system that you can, right? I mean, like, there's no benefit to griping about it all the time if you're not going to do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, in the words of my good friend Drew Thompson, either make a change or shut the fuck up about it already.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I love that, man. Yeah, you look at a band like Cleopatra, like they tricked their way onto a Spotify playlist, and now, huge fucking band. And it's like,
that's one of my favorite stories of all time.
It's a great story. Yeah. And I love those guys, and I love that they can, because of that. I mean, it's because they have a great song and they got it, but Spotify is absolutely the conduit to them fucking headlining in the UK or whatever, right? Like, it's amazing.
Totally. And they had an audacious plan at the right time, and it worked. And I'd be lying if I said we hadn't tried similar things like that, but they just didn't work. So we've any kind of like upper movement that we've had through the streaming services has been grassroots and not we haven't. If we could get a like a fast lane to something like that, that'd be amazing. But we're not as lucky as those guys, or we're not as smart as they are.
Yeah. I feel like every band has had the idea to try something like that. I remember with one of my first bands, I tried to convince my aunt to be the one to send the emails, and it's just like, if just someone else sends the emails, it'll look so much cooler. Or it's like, I'm representing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm representing so and so.
I think when Luke was just like, dude, if she just like did, as she looked at all, like when it said like Luke runs in my, if she knew about us at all, it'd be like, you're the guy from the band. Yeah. You're not a fan of the band.
So funny.
But I think that shit's so funny, man, because like if he did that like 2 days later, it might have got lost in the email and never happened, you know what I mean?
And I mean, do you still kind of do that guerrilla marketing like today, where you're putting out a new song? It's like, well, I'm gonna send this off to all the college radio stations, and I'm gonna I'm gonna do the email footwork. Like, is that something that still applies? Like 5 records in.
Well, I mean, I probably should, but I'm a lazy bastard, and I mean, I've kind of gotten to a point now where like I'll do the stuff with like the social media stuff, or the social media content, and like have a good time with that stuff, and that's kind of that's the effort that I put in terms of marketing and stuff. Aside from what things like we're doing here today, which again, thank you very much for having me. But my way of surviving as a rock and roll musician is partially due to the fact that I have my kind of borders with it a little bit. I kind of compartmentalize it a little bit, where I'm like, okay, well, today I'll do X, Y, and Z to help promote what we're doing. But the rest of the time I spend fucking around on my guitar and enjoying rock and roll, and not letting like the business aspect of the music business kind of dominate my thinking. Like I try and just spend, and I'm kind of afforded that luxury a little bit, because we're at a place now in our career where we have a team that kind of does a lot of the kind of running around for us, which we really appreciate. And I capitalize on having a bit more free time by enjoying life and writing more songs and trying to learn more AC/DC songs. And, spending time with my dog and my partner, and so though I definitely have a good amount of hustle in me, I direct my hustle towards the things that I love about the music industry, and I'm just kind of more wired towards putting my effort and time into the parts that I like about it, which is songs, and just go walking in here and turning my Marshall up to 10 and playing an E chord and just letting it feed back until my neighbors yell. So that's what I spend my time doing.
Dude, that's the best. That's like, kind of when you start a band and you start going through the motions and you're like, dude, if I had somebody to like book the shows, that would be so much better. And if I had somebody to do, whatever, the like PR shit, that'd be so much better. And so because there all of a sudden becomes like less time to do like the fun part if you're like really going to give it a go. Booking shows can be an absolute nightmare if you're trying to do it all the time, especially when you're a new band and you're trying 100%. To be like, hey, we just want to try, like we don't have any fans, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And like a thing that's really important to me is that we've been a band for a long time now, as I said earlier, and as some people might know. But we've known a lot of different bands and known a lot of musicians, and one thing that I've kind of noticed is that like I think that the further that you get into it, the more you need to continuously like keep stoking like the internal little furnace that you have inside yourself, that is like the reason why you played music in the first place, because there are a lot of things that threaten to extinguish that fire. Not to, my apologies for this tired analogy of fire within. I'm like listening to myself saying this. I'm like, Luke, stop.
Oh no.
But let's roll with it. Let's roll with it. It's Friday. It's Friday. It's the end of the week. I'm out of good analogies. I've noticed a lot of people that have kind of like that are our friends or whatever, that have gotten their career to a really good place. And things are good, and people are making a living, and the shows are good, and the records are moving and everything, and then they just like they get super jaded, and they just like I have a friend who will remain nameless who like the entire pandemic didn't touch his guitar, and he was in a big band, and I was just like, well, do you even like doing this anymore? Like if you can't just pick up your guitar and play for yourself, then there's 100,000 people behind you that will, and so maybe your time in this whole ecosystem has come to an end if you can't enjoy what it is, like the core of what you're supposed to be doing. And so that's kind of part of why I've really embraced, whenever we've had help provided, to embrace that help so that I can, keep tending to my little coals in here, and just enjoy. I get a lot more out of the band, and the band gets a lot more out of me, may I add, when I'm stoked, and when I'm like, when I've got enough, like when I'm just really just playing guitar or singing, like having a good time, and not letting. Because I totally understand why people get down. Like anytime I've had these friends, like that guitar player who shall remain nameless, I understand and sympathize and even empathize with a lot of the woes that have gotten them down. Like we all have experienced those things, but I just don't think that there's any excuse for letting them. For me personally, there's no excuse to let that hurt your enjoyment of rock and roll. Like you gotta take that stuff on the chin and just pick up your guitar and play.
Yeah, it's easy to lose focus, right? Like with the amount of work that you got to put into it,
and looking at numbers all the time. Like, dude, fuck it.
Yeah, 100%.
Dude, that's the best advice I think for new bands is just
keep playing.
Yeah, fuck it, just keep playing. Who gives a shit?
Keep playing, and like one other piece of advice is, make sure work really hard on your songs. I'd say, demand more from yourself. I'd say, like, You know, we've had periods of, and this is all just like born out of my own personal experience, but like we've had periods where we were like, you know, we were playing a lot of shows, but like I wasn't writing a lot, and like the band suffers when there's not new stuff to work on. You know, the band like the vibe suffers when you feel like almost like a jukebox or a cover band of your own material at a certain point. Like keep pushing forward, you know, and keep striving, and because, you know, good things will happen. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a firm believer in that when it comes to like rock and roll and like art in general. Like focus on your craft. Like focus on your craft and like find your peace with the parts about it that you don't like, you know, hustling, all that stuff. Like find your peace with that, but, you know, keep your focus on what it is that you actually do and what made you want to do this in the first place. Like it is very critical to keep your focus on that, in my opinion.
I think with any, like the bad, sometimes there's the bad so you can do the good, you know? So there's parts that suck, but it's so you can go play fucking rock and roll, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody, there's not one person in the world that doesn't have to eat shit at work.
Yeah,
you know, like you got it's work. You know, like some things are work.
Yeah,
and even like as fortunate as we are to get to play rock and roll music for a living, like there are parts of it that feel like work. You know, it's just the way it goes. Like it can't all just be, you know, power chords and Miller Lights. You know, there's Zoom meetings and budget meetings and accountants and lawyers and, you know, social media. Like there's things that are work, but you know, they must be compartmentalized, treated with respect, but compartmentalized, and majority of your thinking should be on like the thing that is, like, you know, for lack of a better term, the product, which is rock and roll. Yeah. For us, at least.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really all that you need in life is power chords and Miller Lite. That'll get you through.
They've gotten me pretty far, buddy.
Dude, I do have some like fun stuff I want to get into. I mean, this might be a fun question too. I wanted to ask you, you played a lot of rock venues. I'm thinking small rock clubs, living or dead, that you love. Best, it can be Canada, can be wherever. I was thinking Ontario, but yeah, what are some of your best venues?
Well, I love Lee's Palace in Toronto. I love 7th Street Entry in Minneapolis.
Oh, cool.
Which is very historic venue. It's attached to a larger room called First Avenue, where like they did that. I think a bunch of Purple Rain, like the Prince movie, is shot in there.
Oh yeah.
But First Avenue is my favorite venue in the world.
Okay,
but 7th Street is kind of like the small venue that's attached to it that, like, you know, some crazy stuff's gone down there. I mean, like Husker Du recorded their first album in there. Replacements, like, you know, Eminem played 7th Street 7th Street Entry. I just love that room. You just feel like, oh man, like the things that have happened here. So I love that one. I love, you know, keep bringing it back to Ontario. I think I love, like, some of my favorite venues were not necessarily like the best in terms of acoustics, but it just was cool. Like, no offense to Call the Office, but there's some pretty rough sight lines in there. But it's like,
dude, Call the Office. That's we're in London. I don't know if you know that, but dude, Call the Office is fucking incredible.
The ever-present puddle in the men's bathroom.
Oh my god!
I think Call the Office is like what you think of when you think of like a punk rock venue.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
Like that's what you imagine. I remember right before it closed down, and I got new members. We were seeing a show there, and our buddy Riley White in a band called Basic White, and he comes up to the bar and he goes, "What's going on here, man? The floors aren't sticky. What's going on?" He's like, "They got soap in the bathroom, man."
Yeah, is everything okay?
Yeah, seriously.
Why are they trying to change stuff here?
Yeah. No, I've had a lot of good times at Call the Office, and fucking Radiohead played there. It's crazy.
Dude, it's
Blink-182 played
Queens
there. It's crazy.
Queens, yeah.
It's fucking insane.
I know.
I think, dude, this is a humble brag, so I apologize, but I think that my band was on the last real bill at Call the Office, and I say real bill because we played like the day that COVID was a problem.
Oh,
or was starting to become a
The
problem.
day, yeah, it
and
was
so
March
I think
14th or whatever, yeah.
And I think they did some like sit down cover gigs, but I'm not going to count those.
No.
Rest in peace, Call the Office. It's such
Rest
a
in peace, Call the Office. And then I guess I would say other favorite venues would be like, I really liked the Underground in Hamilton while that was around. I don't know if you guys ever made it out there, but like we saw Sloan play there when we were kids, and we saw like there was a show there in the early 2000s, crazy show. That the bit listen to this bill. This bill's insane. For many reasons. I think this happened in like 2003 or something, but this was the bill. It was and keep in mind this is like a 150 200 cap venue. This is the bill. 2 bands. Alexis on Fire and Arcade Fire.
What the fuck?
and almost nobody turned up. And Brody, who owned the Casbah, rest in peace, another rock club gone, where we've had a lot of good times. But he used to book the Underground, and he told me that like it was a really bad turnout, and then somebody basically came up, and they were they had like a bus full of like disabled people that were like out on a field trip, and they said the whoever was the kind of chaperone of this trip basically came to Brody and said, we've got about 40 people. Can we pay for them to come into the show? And Brody's like, hell yeah. So it was I am very jealous of that crowd that got to see. It was basically this field trip of people. I think that they live in some kind of assisted living situation, and they went out, and that was the audience for this Arcade Fire and Alexis on Fire show.
The most bipolar bill of all time.
I can't even like it. You couldn't make this stuff up. You know? So the Underground was cool. I mean, for that story alone, the Underground's awesome.
That's legendary, man. How do you they got fire in their name? They're probably the same.
That's literally why the show got booked.
Oh my god.
Isn't that crazy?
Dude, that's unreal.
So fucking funny, man. Man, I feel like Arcade Fire has to go on first. You can't go like
I don't know.
But I guess it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's what
yeah.
They're like a Force 9 hurricane. Like,
You'd imagine just like Alexis on Fire plays and then Arcade Fire goes up after that. What a bummer, dude.
Everyone put your suits on.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah. Jesus, man. Didn't you weren't you going to an Arcade Fire? Like there was like a dress code? Did you tell me that?
It was they were doing a tour and they had a dress code, and a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to go, and I was like, I don't know. I'm not
own those clothes,
getting my suit ironed for that.
What would a Dirty Nil dress code be if you had to go, if you had to have one? You can only show up in a sleeveless and
I would say Nil dress code. I would say let's see. Everybody would be given an I'm with stupid shirt at the door. I think that would be our dress code.
That's excellent.
No fedoras. That'd be our only dress code.
Naturally, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, naturally.
Or one per crew, I guess. One per crew.
A fedora cap.
You have to, every group has to have one fedora.
Yeah, that's actually the rule.
I like that. That's funny. Look out in the fucking crowd. You just get
so
80
many
fedoras like space out through a little
a sea of fedoras.
Yeah. You can go granular if you want, but what band has the best tone?
I think probably at the end of the day, for me, that would be my 2 favorite electric guitar players of all time are Pete Townsend and James Williamson. And I think my favorite guitar tone of all time is probably James Williamson's tone on Raw Power, but
nice.
But I'd probably particularly like the rhythm guitar tracks. I spent I've kind of like learned those songs on and off. There's only 8 songs on that album, but every single one of them is like my favorite riff ever.
Mm-hmm.
So
truly.
I spent some time recently like just learning all those rhythm guitar tracks, and it's just unbelievable stuff for me. But I think it's also very abrasive. So I'd say like the sweetest guitar tone of all time for me is got to be Brian May. I think Brian May is the fucking man.
Nice.
Too. That's
I
fucking
played his
awesome.
guitar too. It's
Oh,
really,
shit,
really
really?
weird.
I believe
Yeah,
it.
we have a friend who's his guitar tech, and we got to play that like red special that he built with his dad. And crazy story, like though I mean, like anybody that's knows Queen or knows that like he made it with his dad out of like I think it was like the dining room table they cut the
It was-
body out of, and like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
made the only parts I think that they bought for it were like the tuning heads, the frets, and the pickups. Everything else they like the knobs on it are like machined out of aluminum, and
God.
the whammy bar is a motorcycle kickstand. You know, it is the ultimate DIY guitar, but it is a very strange guitar. But I remember asking, I was like, "How much is this insured for?" And they're like, "It's not, because we could insure it for like $10 million, but it won't replace that guitar." So
Right.
Right, so
Yeah,
there's
but he
just no
plays it on
point.
stage every night. So
That's
Wow.
nuts, man.
Brian May has the sickest tone. I mean, it's just
That's
crazy.
badass.
That's a good
awesome.
call. I would say just all of Highway to Hell.
Yeah.
The drum tones are incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, just lead and rhythm guitars. There's no one that could ever replace Malcolm Young.
That's fair.
No.
Unreal.
I just saw AC/DC a couple of weeks ago in Detroit, and it was. I'd never seen them before. I had to go see them, but it was just unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been on a huge AC/DC kick for the last like year, particularly like most people like the Bond stuff. But
Yeah, 100%.
it's just what a kick-ass band, man. I mean,
Yeah, my
what can
favorite
I
of all
say about
time.
AC/DC?
Yeah, my favorite of all time.
Absolutely. Dude. I mean, I would go. I'd go like Black Sabbath, Masters of Reality era would be my pick.
Yeah,
But that's just
Yeah.
I'm a big stoner rock guy, and that's kind of like the start.
Yeah,
You know.
the epitome or
Yeah.
epitome.
Yeah, yeah.
Epitome's not
the
a
the
fucking
epitome
word, right?
of
Yeah.
tone. Yeah. I got one last question for you, Luke. This has been a back and forth debate on the show this year. Jacked musicians, and Craig and I have decided. Yeah, we came to an agreement that you can be a jacked singer, but you can't hold an instrument and be jacked. So this is a two-part question. And one, just general thoughts on that, and two, I would love tone tips. Big deal with you. Does your muscle density, your muscle mass, do you think that affects your tone at all?
These are very, very. Never been asked these questions.
I could
before.
ask you how you write your songs, Luke, or I could ask you the important questions.
These are
Which
the
of
important
these?
questions. No. Let's see. I think that there's something inherently funny about like people that are jacked that play music.
I fucking totally agree. Thank you.
Like there is a humor element of it, for sure. But I actually think that like having a ton of muscle probably is not good for playing music in general, because like I don't know, I remember like Travis Barker or something talking about that, like he got really jacked and he couldn't play drums as well. I think it's probably
Slows you
better to
down.
be I think it's probably if you're going for musical or whatever's going to maximize your tone spectrum, probably be in fit, but not like
Lean.
wiry and lean seems to
Yeah.
seems to be the common thread through the rock and rollers that I look up to. But then you got your Leslie Wests, who are
Yeah,
pretty
just
big
gigantic.
fellas that
Yeah.
get the biggest tone, But then you have your Angus Young, and he's like 3 feet tall and
Tiny.
is the most monster guitar player of all time.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite lead guitar player of all time probably is Angus. So there's no hard and fast rules, but yeah, there is something inherently silly about super jacked musicians. Like
Fucking
when you see like a
man.
hardcore band, like it's hardcore is best when it's fun, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And there is something funny and fun about like an insanely jacked guy, like playing his art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Insanely
that is-
jacked.
Yeah, that is the
insanely
fun
jacked
of it.
singer and insanely jacked drummer in hardcore makes sense.
Yeah.
But like then you get like insanely jacked bass player and you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, come on.
We were also talking about though, like that band Pigpen. Like Matty Matheson is kind of also like how you would maybe construct a hardcore singer, you know, like some
Yeah.
hardcore. Yeah, you know,
He's the ideal form.
yeah,
He is. And you know, I think like, you know, when you have like a band like the Misfits, and you see those guys are like so jacked that they almost look like they're like that they're gonna die. They're like, it's like your veins don't look healthy. But I ran into Doyle, the guitar player, at the airport once. And
that's crazy.
He was not very nice, but
No,
I've never heard anything nice about the Misfits. So,
No.
I mean,
As like hand in hand as rock and roll is with cartoons and stuff. I don't know how familiar you are with Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
I don't know them.
I just remember the commercials and stuff. I didn't really watch much of it. Kyle loved Aqua Teen Hunger Force, though.
Yeah. So funny. But Danzig actually showed up in that show, and he said he refused to be depicted on the show unless they made him like way taller and way more jacked than he actually is. And you see Danzig in the show, and it's just fucking comical. Like he's like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger in the show. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so funny, man.
Not the Misfits have never been known for their sense of humor.
Yeah.
No.
It is. Yeah. I feel like that's like those old school punk rock guys are like somehow took themselves too seriously for like what they were doing.
You write Halloween rock, but it's serious.
Halloween rock.
It's fucking
very
awesome.
serious.
It's fucking awesome though.
Don't fuck with their art.
Yeah, Psycho 78 forever.
Thanks so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you guys very much for having me on. And the Lash is out July 25th. Hail, hail, rock and roll. And it's beautiful to be alive. That's all I have to say.
Tone capture.